I am Steve Mundt. I'm the president of Quad A, and on behalf of our almost 17,000 members, first of all, I want to thank AUSA, Carter, you and your team. Aviation Hot Topics is an annual event. We can't tell you how much it means. It's a great opportunity to get the entire team together to talk about issues that we're facing us all. I think it's kind of important. I want you to know Lori has done an excellent job in getting me prepared. Okay, now I called AUSA and I said, okay, so you'd like me to speak? Do you have kind of a subject? They said, you got 15 minutes. I said, okay. You got slides? I said, and Bill Gaylor's already proved this, aviators don't need slides. We can talk for 15 minutes without even thinking about it. So you will clearly get 15 minutes. The second piece is, I think it's important to note that when you look at the agenda, it's not focused on materiel. It's focused on a lot of the ditlams and the other pieces that go together. Although material is an integrated piece of this, it's not the only piece. So there's a lot of folks sitting out here like Jim Miles, and he's afraid I might tell a joke about him. Tim Crosby doesn't show up until after I get done because he doesn't want me to talk about him. I can say whatever I want because there's no questions of me at the end. I just talk for 15 minutes and then we go on break. So I did want you to know that I saw this super T-shirt the other day, so I'm trying to keep it straight. I will not tell the exact verbiage that was on the T-shirt, but it basically says, my mother taught me to always think before I act. So if I should walk up and slap the pee-waddle out of you, understand I have thought it through, and this is the appropriate course of action. So, all right. I'm not just putting a bunch of pins on today to say that I've got pins. What I'm going to talk about first is professionals belong to professional organizations. And AUSA is the professional organization for the Army. And so if you're a member of industry, if you're a member of the military and you're not a member, shame on you. Same thing as Quad A. If you're an Army aviator and you're not a member of your professional organization, shame on you. I mean, why do I say that? Because if you're not studying your profession each and every day and what that profession means to your customer, then you're not relevant. You may think you are, but you're not. So you come out with magazines like this. You know, AUSA's magazine just came out, General Townsend, new TRADOC. Everybody wants to know about Futures Command, AUSA's. Comes in the mail, you get it all the time, it's great. You can go on their website, they have new stuff emerging. Quad A, I didn't pick this, Jeff, because of you, I just grabbed a magazine, okay? Those magazines are important. And as you listen today, and the reason I say study your profession is because all the change that you hear that's taking place, the multi-domain battle, what you're going to hear in a couple of my comments is, guys, change is not new. You're either going to change or you're going to become irrelevant. But if you don't look at history and understand what we have done and where we have been and things we've tried, you may miss some. So I tell you, read, study your profession, know your customers. Quad A and AUSA have a symbiotic relationship. I knew that word was used earlier today, so I wrote it down real quick. I had to look it up, but good news is we do have that, and we have been in talks for over a year, and we're going to continue those talks on how we can do more with both of the organizations to better our craft, to better the whole piece in our relationship. So we look forward to that. All right. Balance. Multi-domain battle. You keep hearing, you know, we got to fight tonight, and at the same time, we got to be prepared for the fight tomorrow. We've got to modernize. How do you do that? And everybody out here has an opinion. I guarantee you, if I ask anyone in the audience, you could tell me how you believe it gets done. But I will tell you, we have struggled with that since the day that von Sullivan first started trying to train American soldiers. How do you maintain that? How do you do the balance? How do you fund and resource that? How do you keep your eye focused on it? But what I will tell you is a lesson learned. Think about what we did with the digitized force. back when I was a young lieutenant colonel, and I know I was not riding horses. We did have other vehicles. But the point is that we had a digitized force, and then all of a sudden we had to go fight. And guess what? The force that we put on the battlefield wasn't all digitized. And so we were moving stuff all over the battlefield trying to make sure that people could just communicate with each other. So learn a lesson that as you modernize and as you go to buy that next thing, how do you keep relevant those things that are in your fleet? I hear people talk about materiel and they go, oh, well, we're going to get this new system. Well, the old systems don't just pop out of the business. They're still here. And they're probably going to be here. If you just took a Black Hawk fleet, and I'm not saying the number's right, I'm just trying to use different examples. But let's say you say it's 2,000 aircraft, and you say we're procuring them at 50 a year. You tell me how long it's going to take to replace all those Black Hawks and put something else in. Are we going to buy an equal capability? Are we going to buy a better capability? What are we going to do, and how do we do that? So, balance in the multi-domain. And how do you work with mixed fleets and mixed capabilities? And oh, by the way, as we talked and we heard from our Maneuver Center of Excellence, the enemy gets a vote in this thing. And everybody that thinks you're just going to be able to talk, you may want to think through that again. The old flashcards that some of us remember as young 58 guys may come back into existence just so we can communicate between cockpits. So you can't just wish away the problem. Bill, I talked to all the SIGs from the six-pack, and I said, hey, can you kind of give me an idea what your boss might be talking about so I can pile on? They said, sir, you are just perfunctory. You just get up there, say a couple of things, and go sit down. And I said, okay. Well, one of the things I said is it amazed me, and it continues to amaze me, although Bill explained it exceptionally well, the number one priority for the aviation branch chief was long-range precision fires, because it enables them to do what they want to do. Now, all of those are embedded, and so think about that. Army aviation will never, ever lose its focus on the ground soldier. Never going to happen. The U.S. Air Force, I got it, I'm not throwing stones at anybody, but they have a different mission. Our mission is to support the Army and that soldier, and we will never lose that focus, and I think you hear that in everything that's said. Okay, so modernize, sustain. What does the organizational piece look like in the future of a manned and unmanned teaming? Do you have the same number of pilots? Do you have the same number of aircraft? Are they different? Are they sometimes unmanned? Are they sometimes manned? All of those are huge issues placed in the Army. So again, study your profession and write. Get involved in the dialogue about what your profession. And the worst part about it is get the young folks who are going to live with all this stuff involved in that dialogue. We got a lot of old folks who are going to retire. I can make any decision I want because it doesn't impact me. That's not good. You need young people to get in the dialogue. Okay. I would also say to you, think about the requirements. I don't care whether it's for a system or whatever else. First of all, if you're going to field something in 8 years, what you're going to field is probably what you have today. There's somebody in industry somewhere building something like that, because the fact that innovation happens, it doesn't happen at the speed of light. It does take time. And in industry and other folks, you know that you've been working on a lot of things that you intend to sell the government. It takes time. So all I'm telling you is think about that. And why? Because why did we come up with a 19-ton requirement for the future combat system that we used to call FCS? Anybody here know? Okay, I'll give you the answer. The answer is we wanted to move with the BCTs, and we wanted to go into the C-130. The problem is I happened to be in the Pentagon when we were doing that and trying to explain to the senior Army leadership that there's a thing called physics. And no matter how much you want to lead your way out of that box of physics, you can't. And trying to fire a 122 millimeter round on the move off of a 19-ton chassis, physics says you can't do that. We haven't got there yet. And so you were going to flip these things over. So the weight kept going up. And oh, by the way, when we decided to look at the next combat system, and I know they're doing another study and another look, and we're going to come up with the right solution, but we went out and we laid all the requirements on, and it came in heavier than an M1 tank. Guys, that's not mobile, particularly not if you're a power projection force. So requirements mean something, and we've got to be very careful with how we come up with those requirements and what we're going to do. S&T, R&D, and equipping. Those three things are interlinked in such a way that if you're not thinking about the science in the capability gaps that you have and putting money into the S&T to say, can I do something like this, or do I have to work my way out of it, by the time you get to R&D, it's too late. And I will tell you that in the purchase of future vertical lift, in the purchase of the next generation combat system, I don't care what it is, if you don't start designing in now what your maintenance and sustainment things are going to be, it's not going to happen just because you thought it was a good idea. Industry reacts to requirements, and if we don't put them in there on how we want to do this and how many hours we want to operate and how short our logistics tails are, we are never going to have the opportunity we had in the Gulf War and others. We can't put stocks on the ground like that. So we've got to think about what is the science that you need in these systems to allow them to go longer and longer and longer. Okay. And the reason I say that is, and everybody goes, well, we'll write a KPP for that. How many people in this room remember Net Ready as a KPP? Can anybody tell me what the true definition of Net Ready was and what it meant you had to be able to do? And so we're talking about backbones now that you hear the branch chief talking about. That's not different from open architecture. We've been saying this for a long time. So I am going to kind of finish up by giving you the biggest tip of the day. And I don't care, who you are. And I said this before on stage. First of all, the Army, the senior leadership of the Army has said, we're going to have a futures command. And we're going to find a way to define and decide what the user needs because we are the users, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable, and we're going to move out on that. And they have given us 6 priorities that I do not need to list because everybody has seen that list. But what I will tell you is the proof is coming out in the 1920, particularly the 20 to 25 POM. Watch where the money is. That will tell you how serious everybody is about what we're doing. And so when people say, well, you can't fund it, oh, yes, you can. And I hear the complaints all the time. Well, I have a program that I've been working on for, 20 years? Yeah, and we haven't delivered it yet, but now I'm really upset because they're going to take the money and they're going to move it to something else. If it's not one of those 6 priorities, I will tell you, watch the money. Again, on behalf of Quad A, I thank you for the opportunity. Challenge the panels today. These folks are smart. I will say real quickly, there was an Army Times reporter in here, and she said, I haven't talked to you since 2008. And I said, well, that's because I retired and I'm no longer relevant. The guys that are going to be on the panel are relevant. Challenge them, ask them the tough questions, not just for your own satisfaction, but to cause them to think. That's the biggest thing we have to do. So thank you very much. Have a great day.